It's happening, you guys. Get ready. I finally did it. I finally pulled all of my palettes. I finally ranked them for 2022. Yes, I know it is February 2023, but your girl was a little bit preoccupied over the holidays, okay? So if you guys want to see me rank 103 eyeshadow palettes, then just keep watching. If you guys are new to my channel, welcome. My name is KARENHARRIS. I have been on YouTube for over 10 years now, and I love to film tan girl friendly makeup videos. Basically, when I first got on YouTube, I was like, listen, I need to know from somebody with my skin tone if that makeup product's gonna work for me or not, because I had spent so much money watching all my favorite beauty gurus, convincing me to buy things that just didn't look like it did on them. And so I decided to take matters into my own hands, start up a YouTube channel, and here we are. So if you guys are finding my channel for the first time, highly recommend subscribing because I post about 2 to 3 videos each week, especially about new makeup. I love eyeshadow palettes. I hope that's pretty obvious by the time you get to the end of this video. But if that sounds good to you, highly recommend subscribing, turning on that bell so you're notified every time I post, and grabbing yourself a snack because this is going to be a long video, or at least engage in some kind of household activity because we're going to be here for a while. So yeah, if all that sounds good to you, then without further blabbering, let's get into it. Okay, you guys, first of all, disclaimer, I am like 28 weeks pregnant, so I might talk a little slow in this video. Highly recommend using 1.5 to 2 times speed because I'm doing my best, but this is my 3rd video that I'm filming today, so that's my disclaimer on that. Second disclaimer, I hate ranking things. I have never done a ranking, like a yearly ranking on time. Like basically at the end of the year, I've never gotten to do that because I procrastinate and I just dread doing this, so I like procrastinate. So I finally gathered up over 100 and something palettes, and I actually decided to split this video because I took out all the smaller eyeshadow palettes, so I'm gonna rank those some other time. Because if I included those, I would guess that I would at least be close to 150 palettes. And doing 103 was bad enough. Also, there are some palettes that I used this past year in 2022 that didn't launch in 2022. So the stuff that launched in previous years, I did not include those palettes. I do include every palette I use in my monthly rankings, regardless of if it's a new palette or an old palette or just a palette I'm revisiting or something that came into my collection later in time, like after it launched. But in this video, I needed to narrow it down, so it's only palettes that launch in 2022. And some of these palettes I'd already decluttered, really, but I decided to show them if I had them in my makeup room because I noticed that a lot of the palettes I didn't like, I wanted to declutter. And that would make for a very boring video if I only focused on the palettes I love. So we have some palettes that are already leaving my collection, but hopefully that makes sense. So I tried to do my best. Honestly, the actual rank number isn't really an indicator of how I feel because what I did to just make this a little bit easier on myself was I grouped my palettes by the best palettes, the good palettes, the meh palettes, the bad palettes, and the very bad palettes. So I have like a, oh my god, this one was ass, I wish I'd never spent my money on it pile. The bad ones are like, you know, I wish I hadn't bought that. The meh pile was definitely the biggest section. So basically a lot of the palettes that ended up in the meh pile are like ones that I wasn't inspired by the color story. I didn't think they were worth the price. If I was to go back, would I buy these? Probably not. So kind of like that. The good ones are like, they're really great formulas, but I didn't love the color story or something like that. Like nothing really wrong with any of the palettes, but like personal preference. Just give them the good side. And then the very good are like favorite color story, love the brand, great formula, like that kind of thing. So obviously we're going from bad, very bad to the very best. So yeah, I will do my best to speed through this, but I really appreciate you guys checking out this video. Also, if you're wondering what's on my face, I don't think this video is going to be live yet, but it is coming. I'm wearing a lot of new products from Beaute. They sent me their Persona 5 collaboration collection. That's huge. So I'm going to do a multiple looks video with that. So this is look number 1. And if you want to see that video, definitely make sure you're subscribed. Okay, that's enough disclaimers. I'm sorry for talking your ear off, but let's start off with number 103. I cannot wait to get rid of this palette. Oh my gosh, I so regret buying this. This is from the brand Bella Beaute Bar, and this is their Euphoric Dreams palette. I feel like this is the palette that kind of got my attention from this brand, and I shouldn't have bought it. I even watched Annette review this palette. I don't particularly remember her loving this one, but I was like, let me just try it. Like, now I want to know, and I feel like this brand had been like kind of coming up on the indie scene, so I was curious and I bought it, and I just did not like it. There's some oil seepage, which is not the end of the world, but this shade came shattered, and I'm pretty sure I had like tried to reach out to them and just like let them know. And I don't think I ever heard back, which is like whatever. I'm pretty sure I even emailed them. I don't think I just like DM'd them. I'm pretty sure I emailed them. Anyway, I just feel like this is a very like generic palette and I shouldn't have fallen for it. Like, I feel like I have this color story. Either which way, the mattes were really hard to pick up. The shimmers were okay, but overall I was really disappointed in this. I feel like I played myself though in the end, because it seems like they've maybe like reformulated, gone through some things, gotten a lot better with their stuff, and now they have like beautiful palettes. Like their Strange and Unusual palette, I think, is one that's forever gonna be on my list of palettes I wish I had bought. But yeah, eventually they'll come out with a palette that I'm like, I'm gonna buy that, but nothing yet that has convinced me to place another order with them. But I know a lot of people really like this brand, so I'm definitely open to giving them another shot. I was just very much like disappointed by this one. So this is my worst palette of 2022. Okay, you guys, I'm just gonna put the rank around here somewhere because I'm gonna be out of breath otherwise faster. So this is the next palette, and this is from Gourmand Girls. This is their Valentine's palette from 2022. And I think this is such a beautiful color story, but I did not get along with this formula at all. I couldn't get any of these shadows to stick to my eyeballs. So I don't know if it was just a me thing. I don't know if it's like a formula thing. Either which way, I didn't love this palette, but it seems like they've definitely come a long way since this one, because there's a palette from them that's ranked much higher, and yeah, I'm really excited to see what they do next. Okay, so Meet Me at Midnight from Lois Cosmetics was just one that I was so looking forward to after trying Meet Me in the Underworld. I can't remember if they sent me this or not, but I bought the first one and I really liked it. And this one just did not live up to my expectations because I had built it up so much in my head. So I was really disappointed in this palette. Okay, this is number 100. This is the Pat McGrath Bridgerton palette. I probably should have learned my lesson from the first Bridgerton palette, but you know, Pat McGrath is one of my favorite brands, and I'm just like that girl that's like hung up on their ex that like won't let go. That's where I'm at with Pat McGrath. I mean, there's some stuff she does that I really love, but both the Bridgerton palettes were very disappointing, so that's why this is ranking much lower. And yeah, I just feel like this color story was just not for me and I should have known better. Number 99 is also from one of my favorite brands, but this formula was so disappointing to me. I also don't love the color story. Again, something I should have probably just known better that I wouldn't appreciate, but I'm telling you, Ace Beaute has such a better formula than this, so I was very disappointed by this one. Number 98 is this BH Cosmetics palette. This was like one of the last collections that BH did, I think, before they declared bankruptcy. I scored this on, I think, Beauty Bay, and I should have known better. I mean, BH has done some fabulous work, but they haven't done anything good recently, and yeah, this palette kind of makes me not surprised that they declared bankruptcy. 97 goes to this little Nomad palette, Santa's Village. I love Nomad. Again, a lot of their palettes are like in my best palettes of 2022, but this palette just did not live up to my expectations of them. The metallics were pressed very, very hard, and this color story was a little bit discombobulated, so that's why I'm ranking it at number 97. 96 is the ColourPop Let's Roll palette. They actually sent me this one. This green shade is very pretty, but it's just a very average pastel palette. And you're going to see a lot of pastel palettes towards the bottom of my rankings just because they're not my favorite choice when it comes to colorful eyeshadows. I'm ranking this at number 95 just because it was just very disappointing to me. This is the Lunar Beauty Advent Calendar palette. So this was a really cool concept. I just don't love the execution. So basically every day of the 12 days was a different single shadow. And it came in this beautiful box that had like this color story on the outside. Now, Manny did say that it wasn't going to be like a colorful palette. But with this packaging, I feel like he set the expectation that it was going to be something a little bit interesting. So yeah, I was pretty bummed when I saw the inside of this, and I just feel like he's done so much better than this. So I'm really hoping we have some fun color stories from Lunar Beauty in 2023. Number 94 is this Bloom palette by Clarity. I really like this color story, but I will say I've had some trouble with consistency with this brand. This one is good, but I bought their Memorizing palette that I didn't love. And so I've just always been kind of on the sidelines with this one. I also don't love that they do giant pans, which I know they're changing their pan size. And they do launch a lot of beautiful color stories, but at this time I'm just following them. I'm waiting to see how they kind of shape up in 2023, but yeah, just it's an okay palette. I think the owners of 93 and 94 are friends, so this is another brand that I was like obsessed with when I first kind of started getting into indie makeup. This is Give Me Glow, and they did this like nightlife collection. And I don't know, I feel like the longer I've continued to buy from them, I've just been less impressed by their formulas and stuff like that. So yeah, I think that this is one of the brands like I love, but I don't love that much anymore to keep buying from. So I've kind of taken a little bit of a break from Give Me Glow. This particular palette, I think they had problems with one of the shades. And so then I happened to have the shade that they used as a replacement. I don't know. It was just okay. I just like really built this launch up in my head. I spent a lot of money on these palettes and I wasn't that blown away. Okay, 92 is this collaboration palette between Copacetic and Basket Case Beauty. It's a very pretty palette, but definitely not my favorite formula. 91 is the Supreme Mauves palette from Artist Couture, another brand that I like love their Supreme Nudes palette. Then they came out with another one that I thought was okay, and this one was just not very good. So I am definitely going to be taking a break from this brand as well. Okay, this is another brand that I don't plan on purchasing from. Again, this is the Dominique Cosmetics The Moment palette. I had bought a lot of her palettes when she first launched. I feel like her first palette was like so hyped and like all the beauty gurus were talking about it. So I kept buying them as like a collector, and then she switched to this like acrylic packaging and she came out with this palette and I was like, oh, let me get that, even though like this is really not my color story. So yeah, I just thought it was okay. I'm not like blown away by this. So yeah, I'm definitely going to declutter this after I finish this video. Okay, you guys, I think that you guys are going to be a little bit shocked, but I had to follow my heart with these palettes. So in 89, we have the Natasha Denona Pastel palette. This is the Midi palette. Again, I just don't love pastels. They're very hard for me to get along with. So yeah, I just feel like this is so pastel and it doesn't have enough contrast. Obviously, I can use it with another palette, but if I'm going to use pastels, I feel like I have better palettes in my collection. So 88 is another Natasha Denona palette. This was fine, but I don't love this color story for me. I feel like Natasha Denona has done so much better than this. So I'm really hoping for some hits in 2023. Okay, 87 is another Give Me Glow palette. Again, this is a cool idea. It definitely gave me like Melt Morte Vita vibes. I think they launched this around Valentine's last year, but I just didn't love the quality of this. And so, yeah, I kind of wish I had never bought it. 86 is this one from SugarDrizzle. This is the Hypernova palette. I actually thought this was a nice palette. This one was sent to me. I watched Annette declutter her eyeshadow palette collection, and she had actually mentioned that this was from a different manufacturer that SugarDrizzle was trying out, and so there was like a whole backstory to it. But I didn't love that. Like, I didn't love that journey that they used a different manufacturer, so they offered this at a discount. I didn't know any of that when I played with this palette. I thought it was fine. Like, it's a nice palette, and I think they were selling this for like 27 bucks for like a Black Friday deal. So yeah, that story kind of really put me off of this palette, so that's why it's ranking at 86. 85 is another palette that I think just needs more contrast. I really like this brand. It's What's Up Beauty. They did send me this palette, and it's a really cute color story. I just wish it had a few deeper shades in it so we had some contrast. Number 84 is number 84 because of how expensive this palette is. It's a nice formula and stuff like that, and it's a very cool color story, but I really wish that it didn't cost as much as it did, and yeah, I just haven't reached back into it. It is a nice palette though, but the price point is a little bit over the top. More pastels. We've got number 83. This is the Beauty Bay Love Notes palette from Valentine's 2022. Just feel like it's an okay palette. I definitely feel like some of their other color stories definitely caught my attention a lot more. 82 is another pastel palette. This is the Martine Cosmetics Martine Diner palette. Oh my gosh, this gets hard to open. This is actually a pretty nice pastel palette because it does have some contrast to it, so it's not just a fully pastel palette, and I really like the theme as well. I think they did such a fun job with this collection. 81 is this palette from Lethal Cosmetics. I feel like 2022 was the year where they really gave me some very exciting color stories, so you will see more palettes from them in the rankings as we go up, but this one just kind of fell towards the bottom because there's some other palettes from them that I really enjoy. Number 80 is ranking so low because I just don't like this color story. I'm so sorry. You guys know how much I love Nomad, but this palette, I just was very confused by this color story, so I'm ranking it lower. Number 79 is a drugstore palette, and this Festy Bestie palette is actually a really nice colorful palette from the drugstore. If you're balling on a budget, I would highly recommend checking this out. 78 is a Be Perfect palette. This is the Rain palette, and this is a collaboration palette. It's got pressed glitters, and it's like the 998th rainbow palette that Be Perfect has done, so I'm ready to see something a little different from them. Number 77 is the SugarDrizzle palette. I really like this color story, but you know, we have to rank them somewhere, so that's where she lies. 76 is this Unearthly palette. It's super cute. It's from their Valentine's collection from 2022, but Unearthly launched so many beautiful palettes this year that you're going to see a lot more as we go higher up. 75 is a Purple Lover's Dream palette. This is from SugarDrizzle as well. They did send this to me, and it's stunning, but it's a little too one note for me. So I hope they continue to do more matte palettes like this in other color stories as well. Okay, so I think you guys are going to see a bunch of like rainbow palettes now. So 74 is the Cloud Forest, the Costa Rica palette from Nomad, and it's a really pretty, very colorful palette, which is totally up my alley. I just you know there's going to be a lot of rainbow palettes in the next couple of rankings. 73 is this palette by Diana Saldana and Sigma. It's a beautiful neutral palette, but neutrals don't really do it for me. I mean, I love neutral palettes. There's a time and a place, but if I had to pick, like, I love dramatic, colorful eyeshadow looks, so yeah, that's why I'm ranking this at 73. 72 is another giant rainbow palette. This is the Culture palette from Juvia's Place. I think this is the biggest eyeshadow palette they've ever done. Correct me if I'm wrong. And yeah, I definitely want to play with this even more, but gotta rank it somewhere. Okay, I have to like take breaks between filming so that I can catch my breath. Oh my gosh, but now we're kind of in the meh section, so like these are just like the ones that kind of are in the middle because of color story, or they're just like a giant rainbow palette, or I didn't like the formula that much. So yeah, let's keep going. So 71 is this palette from ABH. This is the Nouveau palette. This is actually a really pretty palette. Again, it's just like, is it gonna like make me want to like throw my panties in the air? No, but it's a nice palette, great formula. Very keen to see if ABH will launch any more eyeshadow palettes this year, because I feel like they've got something going with their formula, so it would be nice for them to do some fun, colorful shadows as well. 70 is a rainbow palette from a brand that is no longer in business. This is the Art Nouveau palette from KLove. I think they're doing like an inventory sale, so if you want to grab this, you sure can. It's a very nice rainbow palette, but like I said, the meh section is just like big rainbow palettes or just color stories that didn't really do anything for me. 69 is a really cool drugstore palette. I think this might have been limited edition, but it's from the brand Profusion. And if you guys see this in store and you're balling on a budget, it has a really beautiful color story, so highly recommend checking it out. 68 is the Sugar High palette from Menagerie Cosmetics. Just a fun little rainbow palette. 67 is the Glamlite and Barbie palette. I think this is very Glamlite, so that's why I'm ranking it lower. Also, I didn't love the formula, and they really took off towards the end of the year last year with their color story, so this one is just not one of my favorites. So Beauty Bay does have one of my favorite eyeshadow formulas. I'm ranking this at 66 because I don't love this color story. It's nice, but it's not my favorite. This is a really cute pastel all shimmer palette from SugarDrizzle. They did send this to me. It's very, very cute. It is an all shimmer palette, and technically you can just put it all over your eyelid and be good to go, but that's not really my style, so that's kind of why it's in the meh section. So I bought 3 of the 4 palettes that Unearthly launched during Halloween last year. So this one is number 64 because it's my least favorite color story. I know they had a few issues with some of the shadows, and it is what it is. I don't really mind, but yeah, this is the 1964 palette from Unearthly. 63 is Teresa is Lethal and her collaboration with Lethal Cosmetics. Congratulations again to Teresa on this collaboration. Just a different color story for me. Sydney Grace makes some of the most beautiful eyeshadow palettes out there. This is number 62. I love their eyeshadow formula. Again, this palette is just a very neutral palette, so I'm just ranking it a little bit lower. 61 is also a Sydney Grace palette. This one is another beautiful neutral palette, but I just don't reach for color stories like this that often. Number 60 is this beautiful, colorful palette from Sydney Grace and their collaboration with Tina, the Fancy Face. This is definitely a more colorful palette for Sydney Grace, but I do love color, and I just have so many palettes that I think have just like a little bit more interesting like multi-chromes and duochromes in them. So I would love to see Sydney Grace kind of embrace some of those newer formulas in 2023. 59 is another Nomad palette. I feel like they had quite a few colorful palettes last year that kind of looked very similar to each other. So this is the, I can't remember which destination they did this one for, but Yep, this is the palette. 58 is the ColourPop and Hocus Pocus eyeshadow palette. I keep it in the box because the packaging is just so cute. 57 is another May palette. It's just a neutral palette. I mean, the quality is really nice. I like Huda Beauty, but it's not like, again, it's not making me like horny for eyeshadow, if you know what I mean. Mother finally gave us a colorful eyeshadow palette. This is number 56, the Pat McGrath Holiday Palette. And this is what it looks like. It's almost there, but it didn't like really knock my socks off. So that's why I'm ranking it kind of in the middle. Kind of just a big, colorful eyeshadow palette like all the rest we've seen in this section. Number 55 is this cute pastel palette from Unearthly. This is the, I forgot, the Bunnies. The Bunnies palette, I think. I think she launched this around Easter. I could be totally wrong, but this is actually a really nice tan girl friendly pastel palette. So I do like this, and yeah, I want to play with this some more. 54 is Mothership 10. I can't remember what this one was called. I really am a sucker for Pat McGrath Mothership palettes. So 53 is this fun, colorful holiday palette from ColourPop and the Muppets. This has a really pretty duochrome here called Icy Patch. I had a lot of fun playing with this palette. It was in my Shop My Stash sometime in like November or December. 52 is this giant palette from Jolie Beauty. This is the Ethereality palette. This is the last palette I purchased from them. They have since come out with like a neon palette that look really cool. And the collector in me wants to have all of her palettes, but I decided to skip on this. If you're looking for a every shade of blue you would ever need kind of palette, you might want to check this one out. 51 is the Gemini palette from Melt Cosmetics. I know Melt is having a pretty good sale right now. I don't know if it's still going on, but if you want to score this palette on a great deal, you sure can. It's a very nice grungy red-green kind of moody palette. 50 is this one from Sigma Beauty. Again, it's a really nice palette. I just love a dramatic, colorful eyeshadow, so we're ranking this at number 50. 49 is a neutral leaning palette from Unearthly Cosmetics. So this is their Daily Grind palette, and I actually have this in my Shop My Stash in the month of January. I had a lot of fun playing with this. I think the cool thing about this palette is that if you are kind of into more neutral looks, you might still appreciate this, and if you like more colorful, dramatic looks, you can still kind of achieve something with this. So yeah, it's a really cute palette, and I really like this small pan size that Unearthly is doing. I really like this neutral palette. This is the Tarte Maneater palette. I haven't bought a Tarte palette in a hot second, but this one really caught my eye, and it has some really beautiful shimmer shades. So if you've been thinking about it, it's a nice palette. 48 is a monochromatic palette from Beauty Bay. This is the Berries palette. Super cute, really nice formula, highly recommend, and also very affordable. This is number 46. I'm not a big Star Wars fan, but I do really appreciate this palette and the cool packaging. 45 is the So Strange palette from Unearthly. This is the one they also did for Halloween. Again, you're gonna see a few of the other ones rank higher because I just prefer the color story. This is where Lethal really started kind of gaining traction in my heart. This is number 44. It's their 1UP palette, and I mean, just look at these colors. You know why I love this palette. Number 43 goes to the Lunar Beauty Nude Prism palette. Again, it's just a neutral palette, but I do love how light and dark this goes. So if you're kind of on the hunt for the neutral palette, maybe this one might catch your eye. These three palettes are ranking in 42nd place. This is a new brand that started in 2022, and they are video game inspired. So they launched this beautiful one called the Druid. Then she did Sorcerer, which is kind of a fun one if you're into like blue purples. And then we have the Bard palette that looks like this. So I'm very excited to see what they'll do next. And so yeah, I just figured I'd rank them together because they're really nice palettes, and I'm really excited for this brand. 41 is another neutral leaning Unearthly palette. This is Leather and Lace. Great everyday palette. This palette is number 40. This is the Vitality palette from Unearthly. I think this is the first time they did the small eyeshadow pans, and this is a great rainbow palette, but like I said, this kind of middle section is just big rainbow palettes, neutral palettes, just color stories that aren't like my top favorites, but this is a really nice palette. 39 is the Ambiance palette from Ace Beaute. A really fun palette. There's some neutrals, there's some pops of green, a really fun palette. If I was going to design like a neutral-ish palette, this would be what I would go for. 38 is going to the Martine Snow Lodge palette. I love this packaging. I love this theme. It was their holiday palette of 2022, and it just gave me all the feels, and the formula is really nice as well. This is the video that never ends. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Also, if I had lipstick on the side of my mouth, listen, I just noticed, so friends don't judge each other. That's all I gotta say. Okay, we're on the home stretch, y'all. Number 37 is the Glamlite and Michaela Part 2. I don't know how to say it, but just a giant all green palette with some blues and purples, which is basically what you're gonna see in my best and very best palettes. I feel like none of you are really gonna be surprised by the amount of green palettes that are gonna be in the top portion of this video. So number 36 is the Earthy palette from Beaute. If you are a fan of green eyeshadow palettes and you love affordable makeup, look no further than this delicious, monstrous, giant laptop computer-sized eyeshadow palette. Number 35 is the Halloween palette between Shroud and Betty Jean, and this is what it looks like. Such a cute color story. 34 is one of my favorite color stories from Beauty Bay this year. This is the Dark Fantasy palette. Can you tell? Can you tell? Greens, blues, and purples. Number 33 is the Primal palette from Blend Bunny. They literally make some of my favorite eyeshadow palettes. Oh my gosh, the new Lure palette is so good. 32 is the Ace Beaute Palettopoly palette. I feel like I'm ranking this a little bit lower because I think the color story is just a little chaotic for me, but the formula is so good, and this was such a fun launch. 31 is I think this is the Metamorphosis palette from Lethal Cosmetics. Kind of a more neutral color story, but this formula is so nice. Number 30 is this palette from Terra Moon. It's the Cosmic Wanderer palette. Definitely kind of like a mid to dark tone palette, so I wanted to rank this a little bit higher. 29 is this cutie from Sigma Beauty. This is their collaboration with Disney, Alice in Wonderland. Number 28 is the Plain Jane Remastered palette from Adept Cosmetics. I am ranking this lower because it's a palette they already had. They just like redid it. So I don't know. I felt like it didn't really deserve a higher spot because it's something they already had. They just like repackaged it and stuff. I don't know how many of the shades they changed or whatnot, but I mean, I love Adept. I love their all shimmer palettes, so it had to be in the top 30 for sure. Number 27 is the Rose Metals palette from ABH. Honestly, this palette is very dark tone, heavy, and it could definitely use a lighter matte shade. But the metallics in this are so good. So, like I said with the Nouveau, I'm definitely waiting for them to come out with a more interesting color story, but the metallics are so good. So, if you've been contemplating picking up one of the new ABH palettes, consider this your sign. I told you Gourmand girls got better with time. This is number 26. It is their collaboration with Blend Bunny, and this is the Spook palette. Such a good palette, such a good formula. Cannot wait to see what 2023 has in store for them. Number 25 is the Glamlite Strawberry Shortcake collection. These metallics are so fun. They did like so many beautiful topper shades. I do wish they had a few darker mattes in these. Like, these are pretty dark, but they could have definitely included a few darker. At least like a black would have been helpful, but Either which way, so cute. One of the best neutral palettes in my collection. This is number 24 from Glamlite. These shimmer shades are so stunning, you guys. 23 is the Solmon 2 palette from Oden's Eye. Oh my gosh, such a beautiful color story. I feel like Oden's Eye is definitely one of my favorite brands. 22 is one of my favorite all shimmer palettes. This is the All I Ever Wanted palette, part 2 from Unearthly, and it's got some amazing, beautiful sparkly shadows. 21 has one of the most interesting color stories in my collection. This is the Glamorous palette from Glamlite, and again, this palette looks like it's like a green purple palette, but I think it's a purple palette with a pop of green. 20th spot is the Adept Minka palette. This is like my go-to glam neutral palette. Say I got to go to like a red carpet event, if I wanted something completely sparkly and just eye-catching, this is the palette I would reach for. Okay, number 19 is the Unearthly Warms My Blood palette. This is a stunning palette. These metallics, listen, so sparkly. Oh, I could just do this all day. I could do this all day. I think these are discontinued now, so you can't get them. But oh my gosh, I'm so excited for her to do Halloween this year. And yeah, this is like a great half neutral, like half unexpected, gorgeous palette. Okay, you guys, we're in like the top 20, so get excited. In 18th place, I had to give it to this guy. This is the Danessa Myricks Lightworks 4 palette. Very expensive. This middle row was kind of dead to me, but highly recommend checking this out if you don't want to shop like indie brand websites and you want to pick up something really unique at Sephora. Okay, I threw this in as a curveball because I felt like I was getting so indie heavy, and I wanted to give ColourPop a little bit of a shout out because I think this is one of the most interesting color stories they did last year. So in 17th place is Aurora Struck, and this is a really fun cool tone mega palette from them. So yeah, I just wanted to mention it. Number 16 is the Frosted Flakes and Glamlite collaboration. This is a very fun color story. I think blues and oranges pair so well together, so I'm glad they did this. Number 15 is one of my favorite palettes from Blend Bunny as well. This is the Dollhouse palette, and it's so cute. My favorite shade is definitely this shade called Shine. It's like a green iridescent shade, and it just transforms these matte shadows and is just so glorious. Number 14 is the Nocturnal palette from Glamlite, a great indie brand that makes beautiful shimmery eyeshadows. So let me give you some swatches, because why not? Home stretch, baby. Woo! Those are so pretty. Number 13 is the Dollhouse palette from Blend Bunny. Oh my gosh, if you are a neutral lover, this is gonna be the palette for you. I love all the deep metallics in this palette, and I love the amount of contrast. I did so many eye looks when this palette launched. Number 12 is one of my favorite Nomad palettes. I love this one. This is the Whistler palette, and I live in a very cold place, so this one just reminds me of home when I see it, and I think it perfectly captures the vibes of a snowy mountain village. Since I gave Natasha such low rankings, I decided to throw her a bone and put this in the 11th spot. So this is the My Dream palette. It might be one of the very few neutral palettes so close to the top, but this has a multi-chrome, it has her cream to powders, and I think it has just like the best of Natasha Denona in it, because I feel like it is one that if I were to start from scratch with Natasha Denona, I would pick this one up over a lot of her other neutral palettes. Okay, in 10th place is my favorite lethal palette. This is the Evergreen palette. And I mean, are we surprised? Look at this color story. And the metallics are so creamy. Are you kidding me? I love this palette. It's so beautiful. Number 9 is the palette that dreams are made of. This is the Dragon Fruit palette from Clionadh, and it is their collaboration with Emily Violet Marie. This does have a lot of pink in it, but each of the pinks are nuanced and just like different in their own way. Also, it is my humble opinion that Clionadh makes some of the best metallic eyeshadows, so I had to rank this very high up in my ranking video. Okay, you guys are probably just as shocked as I am that I picked this Nomad palette as number 8, but you guys, I was just so like in love with this palette. It's a great another like almost neutral palette, but not really. So interesting. I love the reds. I love the metallics. I just feel like you can go so many different ways with this palette, and I just think it's so beautiful. 7th place is my favorite Halloween palette from Unearthly. This is the Weirdos. I didn't think I would be so interested in this color story, but as you can see, it has some really cool mattes, and then the metallics are so good and they just pair so well together. So I really love this Weirdos palette. I wish this one hadn't been limited edition. They did bring it back with different packaging, but I think that's it. I don't think they're bringing it back ever again. Okay, so the 6th palette is this one from Adept, another limited edition palette that I don't think is going to come back in stock ever. This is the House of L palette, and I mean, it's the shimmer shades in this for me. I'm not going to lie. The mattes, they're all right. I feel like they could have picked better shades as the mattes, but the metallics are so stunning. And I kind of love the 9-pan format because it's just like a little bit more like compact. Okay, y'all, in 5th place, so top 5 palettes of 2022. Can we get a goat scream, please? Okay, so we have the 2 Scooby-Doo palettes. I decided to put them together because honestly, I feel like they could really pair well together as well. I think they're working on another Scooby-Doo palette because I see Glamlite out there posting sneak peeks, but these are so cute. I actually bought this collection with my own money, and they actually ended up sending it to me in PR, but holy bananas, these metallics are so stunning. And like, listen, I love greens, blues, and purples, and when you put them all together, you get Karen's top 5 eyeshadow palettes of 2022. That's what you get. Okay, in 4th place, oh my gosh, this is, I think, my favorite Unearthly palette of all time. This is the Dead of Night palette. Oh my gosh, I just like died and went to like makeup heaven when this one came out. I just think this is me in an eyeshadow palette. Okay, in 3rd place, I had to rank 2 of these together as well because they're from the same brand and I didn't want to separate them. It's the Ace Beaute. We have the Envy and the Aura palettes. I think I like Envy just a tish more, but Aura surprised me, you guys, because I was like, oh, it's like a half neutral, half purple, but it's so pretty. It's so pretty. And I mean, don't even get me started on Envy. Like, look at that color story. I love it so much. Their formula in this is so excellent. So love these. Okay, my second palette, my second favorite palette of 2022. Drum roll, please. Serenity palette from Cosmic Brushes. Oh my goodness, this palette is so beautiful. The metallics are stunning. It's like $25. Such a good price. Small indie brand. I'm all about this life. So good. Love it so much. I don't know what else to say. I'm so excited to be at number 1. Okay, let's go. My favorite palette of 2022. It's actually 2 palettes. Again, they launched at the same time, so I'm ranking them together because I cannot pick. But I had to give it to the Oden's Eye Holiday palettes. Oh my god. These palettes are so good, it's disgusting. It's so horrible that you can't get them. I'm so sorry, but they're so good. Oh my gosh. Love this color story. I love this color story. Like, I'm not even like a cool tone gal, but like, they just they just killed it. I love them so, so much. You would have to pry these out of my cold dead hands. And I just, oh my God, I love these two palettes so, so much. So I had to put them in #1 because I just really love those palettes. So good for you if you managed to snag them before they sold out, but oh, I love those palettes. Okay, talking about the palettes I love really gets me fired up. I do need to mention, special mention to my two besties. I didn't want to rank these because I literally talk to Heather and Angie every day, and they're my bestest friends. So this is Miss Hella, who you can't purchase anymore either. This is Angie's collaboration with Oden's Eye from 2022. And my beautiful Heather Austin palette in collaboration with Adept Cosmetics. I love these two so, so much, and so I didn't feel right ranking them, but they're so good. If you have them, you know. But that is it, guys. I finally freaking did it. I finally ranked my 2022 eyeshadow palettes. I'm gonna be a mom of 2 by the end of 2023, so I mean, it might be February 2024 when you see my 2023 rankings, but every year I do this video and I learn something new, so hopefully I can be more and more organized this year and get this video up for you guys sooner. Give me an emoji, any emoji, a heart emoji, a smiley emoji, a poop emoji, I don't care. Leave me an emoji if you made it to the end because you guys are the realest and I love you so, so much, and I definitely want to say thank you if you made it all the way to the end. Let me know if you are a YouTube watcher, what was your favorite palette of 2022, or what is your favorite palette of 2023 so far? You guys know I'm a nosy ass bitch and I love hearing from y'all in the comments, so leave me a comment and thank you so much for watching. I will see you in another video very, very soon. Bye!